Good afternoon, or I guess morning, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Cedric Williams. I am an assistant director over at Skidmore College. For those of you guys who may not be too familiar with Skidmore College, we are in upstate New York. We're a small liberal arts school, around 2,500 students. Very known to be a place where you can study the arts and sciences at a really high level without having to go to a conservatory or specialized school. And also very popular for students to combine the sciences and arts as well. Thank you guys for joining. And I'd like for my other panelist to introduce herself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Veronica McClellan. I'm the Director of Admissions for the College of Music at CU Boulder. I'm so glad that you took some time to join us. Some quick notes about College of Music. I think some of you should be mildly familiar with CU Boulder. CU Boulder has about 30,000 students. College of Music has about 550 students. That includes both grad and undergrad. We are a public state school, so we're not a conservatory, obviously. Much of our degree plan is going to center around music, regardless of which type of degree you choose. We offer a BM, a BME, and a BA. So you'll do a lot of music work regardless, but you will be taking courses outside of music, so it's just something to be aware of. We are participating in the Colorado Free Application Days. Those are October 19th through 21st. And there is a separate College of Music application once you've applied to campus, so something to keep in mind. We offer performance, musical theater. We do classical and jazz studies, so if that's a point of interest, this would be a good campus for you. We are prepared to answer questions about university versus conservatory, general application deadlines. We can talk to you about audition structures. We can talk to you about what pre-screening is. We're really open books, so any questions you guys have, please pipe up. Just simply unmute yourself and pose them, and we'll go from there. So this is a good time. Get brave, unmute, and let us know what you're wondering about.
Yeah, hey, this is Dennis Lipton. My daughter Bianca will be starting college next year, and we have an older sibling that's at CU Boulder now. So I guess the first question is, what is the difference between conservatory and the other? What did you say?
University versus conservatory.
Yeah,
that's a really good question. So typically, if a student goes to a conservatory, they are going to study only the arts. So a colleague of mine, he does this analogy, like if you were to go to a salad bar and you were going to put together a salad, if you were doing a university, you might get some lettuce, some tomatoes, some cucumber, little croutons, maybe top it with some ranch dressing. I'm from the Midwest, I can't help it. And then maybe if you're going to a conservatory, you might make yourself a tomato salad. So maybe you get lettuce with fresh tomatoes, maybe some sun-dried tomatoes, maybe some special heirloom tomatoes tossed in, so you sort of keep it a little bit more uniform in terms of your type of study. And so what that means when you come back to like actual courses you might take, so if you go to a university, you will probably take courses outside of music or outside of dance. So maybe you'll take a science or a math or a history alongside of it, versus if you did a conservatory, maybe you take history of dance in various cultures, dance technique. So you kind of stay within that same vein. Cedric, did you have anything to add to that?
For us, being a small liberal arts school, kind of just echoing some of the things that she said. There's nothing necessarily wrong with conservatories, I don't think. I never say that, but in many cases, you can be limiting yourselves in terms of, the kind of student you like to become. For example, here at Skidmore, most of our students do double major, and one popular thing is music business. Music business is one of our self-determined majors that we do have. Arts therapy is another one, combining any form of art, visual, or performing, along with psychology. You have music education, dance education. So those pairs are very common, and I think it's because we're not a conservatory, you can kind of pair different parts of our curriculum together. So you can explore other passions outside of music or dance. And then you're also meeting people who are not interested in music and dance. You'll meet history majors, you'll meet environmental science majors and biology majors and so on. So that's one of the biggest highlights for us. You can study dance, music, performing arts at a really high level, conservatory level, but you get the exposure academically to other passions, and you meet people with interests outside of yours as well. And then it's a lot of freedom too. So here at Skidmore, you do not have to major in dance or music to take dance or music classes. Very open curriculum. So if you just grew up dancing, but you don't want that to be your whole life, Skidmore is a place where you can continue to dance, whether it's like a therapeutic thing you do, dance class each semester, or whether you want to major in it. So you kind of get to pick your level of commitment to the arts.
Yep, all very true. Also, point of comparison in terms of the application process, university versus conservatory. As a general rule of thumb, it won't be true for every single campus, but general rule of thumb, if a student is applying to the arts in a university setting, you will probably do some sort of general campus application, and then also probably some sort of supplemental application for the program to which you're applying. If you're applying to a conservatory, you will probably just do one application. The reason for that is when university applications were invented, many of the programs in the arts weren't formalized, and they've essentially kept their same application questions for the most part. And so if you did, for example, like the common application, you wouldn't answer questions like, what's your primary instrument, or where'd you get private lessons, or what sort of performances do you have experience with? Those questions wouldn't be a part of the common application. And so that creates the need for a secondary university application, typically for the program of choice. Versus conservatory, it was designed for the arts. And so those types of questions are baked into their primary application. So it's just a point of something to note when you're going through the application process. If you're applying to a conservatory, you probably just have a single application. If you're applying to a university, you will probably have a dual application process. So it's just something to keep track of.
So I had a question regarding double majoring. For us, most of our students do double major here. Around 65% of our students do double major. The majors don't necessarily have to go together or make sense. As long as you're passionate about two areas, you can double major. And we do offer music as a minor as well. So you can do it as a major. We do offer a music major. It's really popular here. You can do it as a minor, or if you just want to take music classes for fun, do music lessons, you can do that without having either minor or major in it here at Skidmore. And most of our students still graduate within 4 years while double majoring.
Yeah, and I mean, for CU Boulder, about 25% of our music students will do a double major outside of music. And then we have about 8% of students that'll do two things within music. And so if you want to do a double major, that option is available to you. Now, this is sort of an unfair representation, right? We both offer double major with music. Not every university will do that. So that as you're going around today and you're asking, that would be a question to ask, because not every single campus is set up to facilitate a double major with the arts. So you want to check on that when you're walking around to different, well, not walking around, clicking around to different booths. So that'll be something to pay attention to. You should also ask if you can start as a double major. Not all campuses will allow you to do an incoming freshman as a double major. Sometimes you'll have to add it on. And then you should also ask graduation timelines. That was good that Cedric added that. So some campuses are designed to do double major within 4 years. Other campuses, depending on the degree you have, maybe 4, 4.5, or 5. And so those are points to check on, as if that's something of interest to you as you're going around and talking to different campuses today. Good questions, guys. What else are you guys wondering about?
Did get a quick question as well. So the application process is going to differ from school to school. Us being a small liberal arts school, you're applying to the college as a whole rather than one particular major. And here at Skidmore, you have until the end of your sophomore year to decide on a major. But that's just at us being a small liberal arts school, it will differ. At every college you look at, likely it'll differ, especially if you're like have a set major in mind that you really want to go to, like the arts.
Good questions. Anything else? Just unmute and pipe up.
Well, feel free to use the chat too. That's another option if we aren't feeling brave today.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
How much like formal training are students expected to already have? And are they expected to be like really proficient in an instrument or two when they get there. And is singing a part of it? Like if somebody has been in advanced choir through high school.
Yeah, good question. And I think that the level of performance that's expected is going to vary from campus to campus. So that'll be a good question. I'm sure you have a list of schools that you're interested in talking to today. So that'd be something to be asking about. And nobody's going to say like, oh, we don't expect our students to be good. Like, I was going to say that. And so a good checkpoint might be to ask about the audition requirements, because you can determine the level that's expected based on those. So CU Boulder, for example, again, this is just an example, not every campus will follow this type of structure. Our students have to pass audition on at least one instrument. Some campuses may have a non-audition track. For example, I know CU Denver has non-audition music. Is it music business or music production? And so they may not even all require audition. So that's, again, something to check. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we require audition. You do have to pass audition on at least one instrument. That does include voice. So if your daughter Bianca is a vocalist, then that is completely satisfactory. Our voice program is a classical voice program. So they do have to do classical rep when they're auditioning. So we don't want to hear like a contemporary pop cover or any singer-songwriter that doesn't resonate with our program. But like, for example, I know CU Denver, that's precisely what they would want to hear. So it's going to vary from campus to campus. I can put, and Cedric, I'm sure you can too, I can put audition requirements in the chat so you can see them, maybe save them later on for Bianca to look at to determine if this is the level of institution that she'd be wanting to audition for. Most students who successfully complete audition for CU Boulder have done ensemble throughout high school. In your case, perhaps you're referring to advanced choir. They've also many times gotten private lessons. They can read music. And so we're expecting a certain level of proficiency. We're not here to train students from ground zero. That's not the way that our program is designed. But we want to have a foundation, and then we'll build upon that when students arrive. And so I can put our audition requirements in the chat, and then Cedric, I'll let you answer kind of from your perspective.
Yeah, just from our perspective, it's a little bit more short and sweet for us because we don't have a school, dedicated towards the arts. Us being a small level arts school, we don't have any audition process. So if you would like to pursue dance, music, any one of our majors that we offer, including the arts, you just declare that as a major here at Skidmore. So no audition requirements. The only audition piece that we do have is if you're applying for one of our merit scholarships. We have a classical music scholarship worth $15,000 a year. And for that, you would have to audition for. But besides that, no auditioning to be a music major or anything like that.
Does that help, Dennis? That was perhaps a little bit more vague than you were thinking.
No, that's great, actually, because my other daughter was in all-state choir, so hopefully that helps a little bit. And then can you describe for CU Boulder any scholarship opportunities as well as Cedric did? Like, are there music scholarships?
Yeah, good question. So the answer is yes. There are essentially three paths forward to get funding from the CU Boulder campus, and you'll find a lot of universities will follow a similar structure. Not everybody will be the same, they'll all be different, but these are the three checkpoints. If you were walking around today asking, you want to touch on each of these areas and see what they say. So the first is, of course, funding through the FAFSA. Obviously, that's going to be need-based aid based on the family income. I would advise you guys to fill out the FAFSA every year, no matter what, whether or not you get any funding at all. In the event that anything goes awry with your family income, perhaps I've seen parents pass away, we've lost jobs, like really intense things can happen. It's so much easier to go in and adjust the financial information than to start from scratch when your life is sort of in disarray. So fill out the FAFSA every year. It's long, it's tedious, it's not fun. You may or may not get money, but go ahead and do it. Okay, so that's government funding, need-based aid based on your family's household income. That's always the first line of defense. Up next, you have campus-based funding. So this will be awarded to students through central campus based on the academic performance, typically through the information gathered through the common application and or some sort of a supplemental scholarship application. That's a common structure. And so CU Boulder would fall into that category as well. And then last but not least, you have your program specific funding. In our case, I'm referring to the College of Music. We do offer music scholarships. They have ranged in the past from a few $1,000s up to full tuition. I want to be completely transparent and let you know, I don't know what that's going to look like this year. Much of our scholarship comes from donors, and people have been having a hard time. And so the scholarship funding pool has decreased. And so what I don't know is how we will strategically use our funds. So historically, as in pre-COVID, when things were more stable, about half of our music students would get a music-based scholarship. And again, that ranged a few thousand up to full tuition. Now with a smaller pool, I don't know if the College of Music will keep that. Will it still be half of the students getting a music scholarship, but perhaps instead of going up to full tuition, we go up to 50% tuition? Or will we do maybe instead of half of the students getting music scholarships, maybe 25% will get music scholarships, and we'll keep the full range up to full tuition. So I just don't know strategically how it'll be managed this spring. I think it's going to depend on kind of what happens in the next couple months. But those are the three paths forward. So let's say, and they also stack, which is a question to ask as you go around different campuses. Not all campus will stack funding. And so you'll want to ask that as well. So by stacking, what I mean is, let's pretend tuition is $10,000. It's not. We'll pretend it is. And so let's pretend from the FAFSA, your family got $1,000. And let's pretend from campus, based on Bianca's academic performance, your family got $5,000. So now you have $6,000 of the 10. And let's pretend from the College of Music, based on music funding, and based on how she performed during her audition, let's pretend she got $3,000. So now you have $9,000 of the $10,000 covered, which means your out-of-pocket expense would be $1,000 for that year. Does that make sense? That all kind of comes together and creates a package. Many campuses will follow that structure, not everybody will. So that would be a good question to ask as you go around and you visit the different campuses. Cedric, did you have anything to add from your perspective?
Again, we do have the classical music scholarship worth $15,000 a year. Some of the highlights in that, you don't have to major in music in order to win that scholarship. You just have to be a part of some concerts that the music department hosts. But aside from that, we do have a science scholarship as well. So we do have a math and science scholarship, which is also worth $15,000 a year. Most of our efforts, those are only 2 merit scholarships. Most of our efforts go towards need-based. So we do meet full need financial aid-wise. So if a family needs $10,000 if they're admitted to Skidmore, Skidmore is going to cover the rest. Same as if they need $25,000, $30,000. So we do meet full need. Students fill out the FAFSA as well as the CSS profile for us. And then we also do have a net price calculator on our website as well, which I can share the link for.
Nice. And that brought up a few good points. So not every campus will require that a student is a music major in order to get a music scholarship. CU Boulder does, and obviously Skidmore doesn't. So like that's a good question to ask as you're going around. I assume because you guys are in here, you guys want to be music majors. But if you change your mind for whatever reason, that would be a good thing to know as you're going through that. Good points. What else is coming to mind for you guys? Is a double major eligible for music scholarship? The answer for CU is yes, because you are still a music major and also, for example, a biology major. So yes, you can still qualify for a music scholarship. You do not qualify for a music scholarship at CU if you were doing a music minor, or maybe if you're only involved in the ensembles. So we would be expecting that if you're getting a music scholarship, you're also leaving CU Boulder with some sort of a degree from the College of Music. But that's a good question, and not every campus will follow that structure. So as you're going around, I would be checking that. And if you haven't already made, I call it the big ugly spreadsheet. If you haven't already made a spreadsheet of like each campus you're talking to and the questions and their answers, I would encourage you to do that. That'll help you keep track, because you're going to find that you're going to get lots of different answers from different places. Other things coming to mind. Adriana, did you have any questions? Kaylee?
I was wondering if CU has a dance program.
Yeah, good question. We do have a dance program. It is not housed in the College of Music. It's housed in the College of Arts and Sciences. And so I can't speak to it in great detail, but I think that there's some representatives from Central Campus Admissions that may be able to tell you a little bit more about it. But that's a good point to check on too, is who houses the program that you're interested in. So if you're interested in theater, is that housed in arts and sciences? Is it housed in like a theater and dance school? Is it housed within the College of Music? So you're going to find that different campuses are going to have different structures in terms of where they put different programs. So you'll want to check on that as well, because that might impact your application process. It might impact the way you think about how you're auditioning. It might also impact what you can expect in terms of the pipeline for scholarship funding. So it's a good question.
Could you briefly explain what a BFA is versus just like a regular degree?
Sure. So when you say BFA, are you what program are you? What is coming to mind that you're thinking of in particular? Like, are you looking at musical theater? Are you looking at theater? Are you looking at
I
dance?
was mostly thinking like dance.
Okay, yeah. So as a rule of thumb, a BFA degree will have more emphasis on like a technical skill set. Maybe it would be, I don't know, like for example, I don't know much about dance. It's not in my it's not in my college, but like if, for example, if you're going to do theater, like theater and dance, a BFA would have more emphasis on technical skills. For example, like set construction, lighting, costumes, kind of looking at the whole performance put together, versus if you did like a BM, like a bachelor's of, in my case, that'd be a bachelor's of music in theater, then the emphasis would be much more on your own personal skill set. So for example, like how well do you sing? How well do you dance? So less thinking big picture and more thinking individual. I'm not sure if that applies for dance by itself or if it follows a different structure. Cedric, do you know?
So for us, it's a little bit different. For us, it's a Bachelor of Science. You focus on one of two areas. You either focus on performance and choreography, or you focus on research and dance. But for us, both of those are a Bachelor of Science for us. So we do not have a BFA now.
It's a good question. I'm actually doing a quick search to see if I can find something to send you in the chat that might help you as you're looking around at different schools today, just to see how it applies to dance. So if I find something, I'll send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions, things coming to mind, things that you generally want to understand about the college application process? Like, yes, we're experts on our own institution, but we can also answer questions about, in general, you can expect to see X. We can help you with that as well. I'm going to give 10 more seconds, and then we're going to jump to maybe a few FAQs that we get. Okay, cool. An FAQ that I get whenever I'm talking to people about applications to performing arts in general is like what you can expect for timeline, because it is a little bit different than if you're just applying to, for example, engineering, or if you're only applying to biology. And it's because you have so many more steps in your process. So for example, if you were applying to a music program, we'll do that because we both have music. So we'll just do that. So for example, if you were applying to music, you would find that you have the campus application. Again, this is following university structure. You'd have the campus application. If you were applying to like engineering, math, science, whatever, you'd just be done. That's the only step. Submit that application, right? But if you're doing the arts, then you add things. So you got your supplemental application, you've got sometimes a pre-screening, and then you've got sometimes an audition. So it can grow pretty quickly. And so typically you'll apply to campuses in November of your senior year. That's a pretty common timeline, October, November, you'll submit, you'll find deadlines start popping up. You'll apply to your program come December-ish senior year. December 1 is a very common program-based deadline across the country. If you have pre-screening, which typically if you're in a more common instrument like voice, violin, sometimes piano, flute, you can expect that you will likely have a pre-screening. Pre-screenings are often due December 1st or December 15th. That's a common timeline across the country. And then most of the time auditions are held January, February, March, with February being the absolute peak time. So that's kind of what you can expect for your senior year timeline. You'll start to get admissions decisions back as a general rule come March of your senior year. Once we know who's admitted, that's when we start administering scholarship awards. So you'll start to find out scholarship awards come March/April of your senior year. And then May 1st is typically the deadline to accept or decline an offer of admission. So that's a pretty common pace that you'll see. Cedric, does your program fall within that, or is it different?
Similar, but different as well. Again, being a liberal arts school, it's going to be a general application. You're not applying to a specific program. So therefore, you know, there's no audition and no separate deadlines. The only way that deadlines kind of differ is if you're applying to our music scholarship. Because in that case, you would submit an audition piece, same deadline actually, but you just would submit an additional audition piece for that. And we use Slide Room for that. And then you are invited on campus for an in-person concert, or sorry, not concert, competition.
Awesome. Cedric, do you have a frequently asked question that you get a lot? Kind of about general, like what to expect?
What to expect? I think we addressed a lot of them. The main one I get is, am I applying to the school or am I applying to a specific major? And that's going to vary depending on your school and the programs that you're looking at. Yeah, I think nothing else that comes to mind that we didn't address yet.
Okay. I get a lot of questions about what is a pre-screening. Pre-screening is typically, it's a pre-audition process. And the goal for the institution requiring pre-screening is to narrow down the list of applicants. So for example, let's pretend you're a vocalist and for the institution, maybe they need 10 vocalists that year, but maybe 250 voice applicants are on the list. And we don't have capacity to hear 250 voice applicants live. So in that case, an institution might implement a pre-screening. And so pre-screening is typically with your program application, you'll submit a recording. It'll probably be an abbreviated version of what's required at the audition for that institution. So you'll submit that recording. The faculty will review it. Typically it takes them 2 weeks to a month, usually less, not more, to review a pre-screening to let you know if you pass or failed. If you failed pre-screening, the process is done. You are not going to move forward to the final audition process and you are not admitted to that program. If you pass pre-screening, you might think of it as a callback. And so then at that point, you'd be invited to the formal audition process. And at that point, you can pass or fail audition. So they'll might narrow it down from the list of 250 applicants to maybe 95 applicants who come and do an audition. And then of the 95 applicants that come do an audition, maybe they admit 20 of them. And of the 20 students they admit, maybe 10 of those students accept that offer, and maybe 10 of those students choose to go elsewhere. So that's the purpose of pre-screening, and you may find that you run into it. Musical theater programs require it pretty frequently. So it's a somewhat common thing, but it won't be consistent in every campus. And so just because you're a vocalist, that does not mean that you'll have pre-screening required no matter where you go. But it would be something to ask about as you're going around today, talking to the institutions of interest.
So I thought of I thought of a couple of questions while you guys were.
Perfect.
Can you describe maybe I don't know, the most competitive down to the least competitive, or, as far as applications that you guys get for each instrument or for voice? And then what about, do you accept transfer students? Like if somebody wants to add a music major or minor, and how does that work? Do they still have to go through the, auditions and all the same things?
Yeah, good question. And it'll be different campus to campus. So I can give you an idea of our programs, like what's the most competitive. Cedric, I'm sure you probably have a notion too of like what's most competitive at your campus. And then we can chat about how transfer works. So for me, musical theater is one of our most competitive programs, along with our voice and opera. Reason for that is there are just simply a lot of vocalists. And so voice will almost always be one of the most competitive programs at the institution that you're looking at. That's pretty common. Flute is also a pretty common one for us. I mean, pretty competitive one for us. Again, there are a lot of flutists. And so when you think about instruments that are more commonly played versus less commonly played, that will make them more competitive. So for example, you probably haven't met anybody that plays the harpsichord. And so harpsichord would have less applicant competition. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a standard of playing for someone who's auditioning for the program. You still have to be at a certain level. But you're not at there's not 40 students at the level, and we only have space for 2. So if you're at the level for harpsichord, you would likely pass audition and be admitted, as opposed to a vocalist. Even if you're at the level, if there are 50 students who are also like at the baseline and above, we would take the top 20, right? So even if you're good enough, but you're lower than the other people that applied, that's what it means. That's what we mean when we say competitive, right? It's within the context of the applicant pool. So voice-based programs, flute-based programs across the country will generally be more competitive than, I don't know, like a harpsichord or organ or maybe bassoon. And so the number of students that would be accepted for each instrument is typically, for most institutions, going to depend on how many students graduated in the class before. It might depend on ensemble needs. So if there's a big gap in the choir, for example, then they would be admitting more vocalists that particular year. Or if they created a new orchestra, perhaps now there's a need for more string students that year. And so there are factors that go into how many students will be admitted for each instrument area. And so it'll change a little bit year to year. So for example, 2 years ago, we needed a lot of jazz students. This year, we need fewer. And so then the number of students that we're admitting will go down. And that'll be true for most campuses. You'll find that that's pretty consistent. Cedric, do you want to respond to that? And then we'll get into the transfers.
Kind of for us, again, it's going to be a lot different for the most part, because we don't have an audition. And then for us, it's conservatory level music and dance, but you make the decision when you get here. And you're not applying to a specific, school of dance for us. So with that being said, competition is we just look at general. The same we're looking at like someone who's intending to major in history or business. So it's not like certain slots or anything. That doesn't really play into factor for us.
Cool. As far as transfer goes, we do accept transfers into the music program. Not every program does. So that's a good point to be checking on. So we do accept transfers. We accept transfers off campus. So let's say, for example, you were studying at, I don't know, Indiana, and you want to transfer to CU. We can help you with that process. And also we accept transfers from within campus. So that's called, you might refer to it as a major change. And so if you were studying biology, but you realize your true passion is opera and you want to change and study opera, then we would help you through that process. Now, transferring can get dicey in terms of graduation timeline. So for example, if you were pursuing a BM, which is our most advanced performance degree for music, that requires a full 8 semesters of private lessons with our faculty. And so if you were to come to CU, for example, and you're studying biology freshman year, and then you try to change over to voice, so music, your sophomore year, you would automatically have 4 years from when you start music, because you have to do the full 8 semesters of lessons. Not every campus follows that structure. So that'd be something to check on. But we do, and that's for the BM. Now, a BA degree, for example, is a lower level music degree. And so that only requires 2 years of lessons. So if a student was to transfer into a BA level degree their sophomore year, that would not impact their timeline to graduation. So it's going to depend a little bit on when you're transferring, from what program you're transferring, and then also what type of music degree you're planning to pursue. So that's kind of how transfer works for us. Cedric, what about you guys?
And for us, I hate to sound like a broken record, but very different. So we accept music transfers, same as, and we treat it as treated the same way as any other transfer as well.
Cool. Good questions. What else is coming to mind? Adriana, do you have questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, cool. What about you? Is it Kaylee or Kalia? I assume it's Kaylee. I'm right there.
It's actually Kalea,
Dang it,
and
I was wrong both ways. Kalea. Okay, Kalea.
no, that's okay. And I don't have any questions either.
Okay, awesome. Dennis, is anything else coming to mind for you?
No, I've learned a whole lot, and Bianca is feverishly writing everything. So thank you guys. This has been great to learn
Yeah,
the differences between, you know, the liberal arts college with Cedric and the big university. It's been hugely helpful. So thank you, both of you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Okay, great. Well, if you guys don't want to hear more, like don't feel like you're trapped here. If you want to leave, you certainly can. Otherwise, I think we might go back to FAQs, if that's okay with you, Cedric.
Sure. I want to respect your time. Would you guys like to hear more about it? How do you guys feel? What time does the college fair portion start? In 20 minutes or so?
Yep, you have 20 minutes. Okay, Dennis wants a few FAQs. Perfect. Okay, great. We can jump into that. Let's see. So we've chatted about we've talked about general application structure. We've talked about general application timeline. We've talked about what pre-screening is. We haven't necessarily talked about audition structures, so maybe that would be a good thing to check.
Maybe I can start first with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to start, because I think
Yeah.
it's only for scholarships, right?
Yeah, only for scholarships. And again, auditions wouldn't really, they don't really exist for us besides that merit scholarship. You can submit portfolios and things of that nature if you kind of want to show that artistic side, but yeah, it doesn't really factor in because you're not applying to a specific major with us.
Yeah, so then if they are auditioning for scholarship, do they do like a live audition? Do they submit a recording? Is it just the portfolio? What's the structure for it?
Again, like I said earlier, so they would submit an audition piece, and then if they make it past that part, they're invited on campus for that in-person audition.
Okay, cool. So that would be a pre-screening structure then.
Pre-screening, no. So not so much. So they apply for our music scholarship. And if they are selected, they're move on to be, I guess, a semi-finalist in campus.
Cool. Nice. For CU Boulder, and this will be true for a lot of music programs, so this I think is probably a little bit of a more common structure. So for audition, and you're required to audition for the Music College of Music at CU. For audition, there are a few ways you can choose to audition. The first is you can just submit a recorded audition. Pre-COVID, this was done by, I don't know, about a fourth of applicants would choose to do this. It can be interpreted as a lower level of interest to the program. because most programs will have auditions on like the first 3 weekends of February. And if you're applying to 10 schools, you have to choose which schools you're auditioning at live. And so naturally, you might send a recording to a school that you are less interested in, for example. Now, since COVID, that structure has, of course, changed because last year, most programs didn't host any live auditions for safety reasons, right? And so now some programs have moved to exclusively recorded auditions, so they will never hear a live audition. They just want you to submit your recording and they'll make their decision based off of that. Some programs have moved to a more hybrid structure and some have moved back to a more traditional structure. And so a hybrid structure, for example, I think it's probably what CU, I think our process probably falls into that category. So you might find, so for CU, you are required to submit a recorded audition. We are planning to use that as a backup in the event that something goes awry with live auditions. Perhaps you've broken a pinky, you can't play your bassoon. Perhaps you've got COVID or pneumonia, you don't have the strength in your lungs to sing properly, or you might damage your vocal cords if you were to try. Perhaps there's a huge blizzard, you can't make it to campus from wherever you're traveling from, whatever it might be. So in the event that for some reason you can't make the live audition, we will use the recording as a backup and make our decision based off of your recorded audition. So everybody submits a recorded audition. You can choose to just stop there, tell us, I'm only going to submit a recorded audition, please just evaluate it, and we will. Or you can say, I'm going to submit a recorded audition and I also plan to do a live audition. And in that case, we wait until we have your recording. Once we have your recording, we then give you permission to sign up for the date and time that you would like to complete your live audition. And so then you would come do your live audition. For the live audition, we are offering both in-person and virtual. So the first 2 audition weekends for us right now are scheduled to be in person at the CU Boulder campus. And our final audition weekend is scheduled to be just a virtual live audition. We wanted to build in the structure so that people had choice based on their own comfort levels. In the event that things were to evolve with COVID and we cannot do our in-person auditions, then we would just cancel them and we would go back to using your recording as a backup. So that's like an example of a hybrid audition structure. And then you go back to kind of a more traditional audition structure, which some campuses have chosen to do this year. And that in that case, you are only submitted a recording or you're only doing a live, and you can choose how you want to do it. And so if you submit the recording, boom, submit the recording, you're done. If you're doing a live, some of them are only doing virtual live. That's a new thing in response to COVID. Others are requiring that you do travel and come to campus to do a live audition in that way. And so there's a lot of questions about the audition structure. Again, another reason to make, I call it the college search, I call it the big ugly spreadsheet. This would be a supporting reason to create that spreadsheet. And so you want to track if you're only doing recording, if you're doing a recording and a live, is that live in person or virtual? So you've got a lot of checkpoints there. And so you'll want to check because each campus has chosen to respond differently based on a variety of factors. And so you'll just want to see what they're requiring and then make your own plan as it goes from there. But I don't know of any campus that is only requiring a live in-person audition as the only option. So if someone says that, you may double check. Question here, can you submit auditions for more than one instrument? It's going to depend on the program. Some programs will only allow you to be a part of a single studio, aka only have one instrument. And so in that case, you would audition for that instrument. Let's say, and I think Bianca's instrument is voice. So let's say your instrument is voice. So in that case, you'd only submit a voice audition or only complete a voice audition, depending on what campus you're going at. Other campuses will allow you to have a primary and secondary instrument. And so perhaps for your primary instrument, Bianca, let's go in your case, it's voice. You would do a full 4 years of lessons. And then for a secondary instrument, let's pretend it's piano. And so you might do 2 years of lessons on piano, for example. And so the way that the campus structures the response to being admitted to 2 studios is something you'll want to check on because it will differ based on each program. And then some campuses will allow a dual degree. So for example, you might earn 2 performance degrees, a performance degree in voice and a performance degree in piano. And if that's the case, then you do a full 4 years of study on both instruments. And so again, it'll vary from campus to campus. That was a good point to check on. But you will likely have an emphasis on one area of study or one instrument over the other. That I think is the most common structure, unless you have a full-blown dual BM program. Good clarification. Cedric, did you have anything to add there or no?
No, since we don't have auditions, it really doesn't factor in for us.
Yep, cool. Did that spark any questions for anybody?
Yeah, for Cedric, is your program, you know, the conservatory, would you say it's pretty representative of other small liberal arts colleges as far?
Definitely.
Not requiring auditions, et cetera.
Yes, especially programs, especially here in the Northeast, and I think small liberal arts schools in general. We really pride ourselves in creating that, you know, very holistic experience for students in a place where you can continue that passion for music or dance. But really, it's at the level that you want to follow it at. So if you want to major in it, you can definitely do that. But again, you're applying to like the small liberal arts school as a whole rather than one particular major. And I think that's very popular for many schools. And some of the benefits for us, you get conservatory level. So what that means is you get the structure, support, and program similar to a conservatory, but you get all the freedoms of not going to a conservatory as well. And again, there's pros and cons. It's definitely something that students have to look at and decide if that's the move that they want to do, as far as conservatory or non-conservatory. But for many places, yeah, you don't have to audition or know you want to study music, dance when you get here. Any other questions? Okay, so maybe we can start to wrap things up and get ready for the fair portion.
I think that sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. I'll share my email address if you do have any other questions. Definitely feel free to reach out.
And I will do the same.
All right, thanks again, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we are all set. All right.
Okay, awesome. It was nice to meet you, Cedric.
You as well. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.